I'm going to start really with a caveat, and that is that as a donor and a board member of UJA Federation of New York, everything that I'm about to say, I exempt UJA Federation of New York from any criticism, either direct or implied. They are a perfect organization. I have a somewhat contrarian view, I suppose, of the economic crisis as it impacts the Jewish community. I believe that the current economic problems really have acted as an accelerator of trends that really have already existed. And what are some of these trends? I think that foundations and individual communities, remember I've exempted New York Federation, and that's serious and true, have moved from support of the collective by becoming grantors. And their move is in general a rejection really of a strong, disciplined central organization. Danny spoke about the Latin countries not having endowment. We have very healthy endowment in the North American communities, and endowment that is growing. However, these endowments are primarily designated giving, 44% of which go to organizations outside of the framework of the Jewish community. That doesn't mean that's a bad thing. What that does mean is that there is not the same secure future via endowments that the organized Jewish community needs going forward. And while transparency and impact and needs assessment should always be criteria for giving, there's a growth around special interest giving, the desire to find the next magic bullet type of NGO, which I believe has led to a very serious loss of strategic philanthropy. And to me, another trend that really predated the economic crisis, but again will be exacerbated by it, is a turning away from Israel and from overseas obligations. There's a prevailing wisdom that Israel's GNP is such that Israel doesn't need, quote, doesn't need us anymore, based on, I think, a total misunderstanding of exactly what Israel's economy replicates, which is much more of a Latin American economy. And it also negates how important that people-to-people connection really is when it comes to the act of not just giving, but connecting to a value system and to a social purpose that's larger than yourself. I'm not an economist, but not every change that's happened as a result of this financial breakdown is going to be reversed. The world economy, so they tell us, is getting back to normal. The phrase, however, the current trendy phrase, is now the new normal. In other words, what is it that normal is going to be? And again, prevailing wisdom being that the normal that we have experienced is not going to be the new normal going forward. Particularly if we factor in what I call LBM, that's life before Madoff, versus LAM, life after Madoff. And what is it that we're seeing? I think Mort referred to it before. It's definitely a contraction of spending habits. There is a very serious erosion of personal health, wealth, maybe health as well, God forbid, but wealth. And for those of us that were taught, certainly over the last few years, that this tremendous wealth transfer, estimated at something like $17 trillion, that was going to go from one generation to another, that is a number that is very seriously in question. And there can be no doubt that that is going to affect, and has affected already, diaspora communities, their infrastructure, their ability to meet the needs that's presented in their community, and it most assuredly will negatively impact this very grand and strategic partnership that we've always had with the State of Israel. There is most definitely an inward turning, and that turning inward, looking only domestically, has only grown. In life before Madoff, and here I disagree somewhat with Board Zuckerman, most of the people that were affected as individuals and as foundations as a result of their relationship with Madoff were really the older, affluent generation who were very, very committed. They were our traditional donors, our most major givers, the ones that were very committed to the notion of the collective, very committed to the State of Israel. The Sun Belt communities in the United States have been particularly hard hit because these communities were the beneficiaries of the largesse of these particular donors. And they have not, over the years, built the same kind of philanthropic infrastructure from their next generation of donors. And life after Madoff, back to the major donors. I think a lesson has been that we can no longer just rely on a small group of major donors. Foundations have been closed. There are belt-tightening mergers. And to me, the most existential question in the short term, but it's going to have very, very long-term consequences, is will the next generation pick up the gauntlet, or will they just continue primarily in this new direction of only looking through special interests? If we're going to have in the longer term the kind of resources, human and financial, that we need to make our Jewish community strong around the world and to maintain this deep and needed partnership with the State of Israel, their connection and that role of the next generation is absolutely crucial. Therefore, I think we need to concentrate on identity building and a sense of peoplehood, day schools, transformative experiences, whether it's Birthright, Massa High School in Israel, absolutely vital. I think we've been negligent in our outreach to intermarrieds. We've been more judgmental than we've been inclusive. And I think that organizations, sadly, and many of our communities are in the process of doing this, will have to learn to do more with less. They have to be much more cognizant of their priorities and marry those priorities to the budget realities that they're going to have to face. I think there will be more looking perhaps for strategic partners and a concentration really on deliverables. I'm hoping that this will allow us to open the door or reopen the door to the added value of lay leadership, which has been seriously marginalized of late, at least in the national system in the United States, and bring power back to the center. I believe that too much going it alone is only going to make matters worse. I think we need better communal cooperation, shared research, marketing, centralized planning, and much less of the Chinese menu that we have today, where I think priorities have gotten absolutely lost in this insane multiplicity of choices. And our current administration in Washington is at the moment considering a change in the charitable deduction, which will have enormous impact. And when I hear the chairman of the Budget Office of the United States say, well, it only affects 1% of the population, however, that 1% of the population are the very people that are really supporting the medical institutions, the cultural institutions, and certainly our Jewish world. I will close, as John is tapping at me, by saying, I can't remember who last night, oh, it was Tony Blair who talked about the Chinese word for crisis and opportunity being the same. I think this crisis does present an opportunity particularly to engage this next generation, also to re-engage with smaller donors. I'm going to be very pragmatic here. Smaller donors can be reached by direct mail. It's extraordinary. We saw the statistics in the media presentation today, the plenary, about the extraordinary value of social networking sites. I think the organized community has been much too slow to recognize their value, and I think the statistic that we saw in that presentation was John McCain raised $11 million over the course of his campaign, or whatever it was, and Obama raised $50+ million in 29 days only through social networking sites. That's our future. I would say in closing, we need to very much to repair the disconnect from assuming responsibility one for the other. We've got our work cut out for us, regardless of the speed and the extent of the economic recovery. Thank you.